Welcome back to the show, folks. This is the wrap-up, your daily dose of pop culture and movie news, hosted by me, Mr. H Reviews. However, on today's episode, we're only talking about one piece of news, and that's Hellraiser. Oh, yes. So we've got a Hellraiser-heavy wrap-up show for you today. Some of you might know me because of my Hellraiser content. I am a bit of a Hellraiser aficionado, as it were. And this news dropped last night. Just phenomenal. So, what the news is, and we'll recap on the other Hellraiser news, and how this has just come out of nowhere, but seemingly not, and we'll get to that. So, there's going to be a Hellraiser TV series. Of all things. Right? Now, a lot of people will instantly go, yeah, but I want a movie. I've got you covered, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be talking about the movie that is happening for a theatrical release as well. But before we get into all of that, I have to do my standard plug. If you're new here, hit subscribe and make sure to smash this like button and also give it a share if you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get into it. So, Hellraiser. Angels to some, demons to others. We're having a good time with Hellraiser lately, aren't we? Because, let's just recap. Hellraiser being rebooted with David S. Goyer writing and producing. This is by Spyglass. Now, for those that are not aware, this dropped last month, May. And this was huge news anyway, because multiple reasons. Weinstein used to own, with Dimension, Weinstein used to own the rights to Hellraiser. And then it got passed around to Miramax when, you know, Weinstein's company dissolved. Miramax then had it. Of course, Miramax famously was owned by Disney. And then, even though we heard news from the Miramax CEO that they were looking to reboot it and do all of this stuff, they farmed the rights off to Spyglass Media Group, which was formerly Spyglass Entertainment, I believe. So their company's been around for a while, but this is their first project as Spyglass Media Group. And this came out of absolutely nowhere. Mainly because we were all hearing rumours and rumblings that Blumhouse was going to be doing a Hellraiser reboot. Of course, because they've done Halloween, right? Logic dictates, they just kind of farm it off to a company that can do it on the cheap, on the down low, and make some money with it. Now, with respect to this, because again, recap, not everyone would have heard this news, but I just want to bring you all up to speed. So the Spyglass Media Group had announced their first project since launching back in March, and will fast-track a reimagination of Clive Barker's 1987 horror classic Hellraiser, with David S. Goyer producing and writing. Now, in my initial report on this, I was a little bit harsh on David S. Goyer. I still don't really think he's the man for the job. A lot of people will say, yeah, but he was the man behind the, you know, Dark Knight trilogy and all of this stuff. He was to a certain degree, but he's more an ideas man rather than a refining man. He's not able to produce fantastic screenplays just by himself. So I think he'll be good as an ideas man. I hope they then hand the script off to someone else, but because he is producing this movie, I feel like that is unlikely. Now, this is news because it was confirmed it would actually get a theatrical release, and that's the huge part of this. So, it said specifically, I'm not sure whether I can find the actual quote. Clive and I go back more than 30 years together. For generations, his brilliant, twisted and imaginative Hellraiser haunted the minds of moviegoers with its searing imagery of Pinhead. David is the perfect storyteller to continue Clive's vision for a new theatrical, there you go, new theatrical version of Hellraiser. So this is still happening, but we are now also getting a TV series. What a good time to be a horror fan. What a good time to be a Hellraiser fan. Now, I am sick to the back teeth of reboots, but this doesn't look like it's going to be a reboot. Now, let's shuffle on. So it says exclusive. It producer Roy Lee and Ready Player One producer Dan Farah have positioned themselves to bring to the small screen for the first time ever a Hellraiser series. the iconic horror franchise anchored by the malevolent, straight out of hell villain Pinhead. Those producers have joined forces with producer rights holders Lawrence Kuppin, David Salzman, and Eric Gardner. Now, they have apparently had control of the TV rights since 1989. So this has been sat on for years. But if there was ever a time to bring it to the screen, it would probably be now. It might have done fine a few years back, but now the stuff that they can do with a fairly limited budget is just exceptional. So I think this bodes really well. Now, it says the intention is to use the mythology established in the movie franchise and the Clive Barker novella, The Hellbound Heart, as a launchpad for a new series that could be an anthology or a more traditional narrative. So what does that mean? Well, anyone that's read The Hellbound Heart and anyone that has seen Hellraiser knows that there are some distinct differences. But there are a lot of similarities. They blend nicely together. It looks like this series will be a blending of the two, so as not to tread on the rights holders and the license of the original property itself, which I'm sure the rights to that movie is just all over the show with the way Clive Barker, with the way he sells rights and stuff like that. So it'll be a blending of the two. Now, the fact that it says it could be an anthology, that works really, really well. Now, let me just dissect as to what I think an anthology could look like in the Hellraiser universe, and I want to hear your thoughts on whether you agree with me. So with respect to an anthology, the narrative lends itself incredibly well for period pieces, for literally week by week, different people opening the box, being tackled by the Cenobites, or potentially you can have an ongoing narrative in this anthology world where there is a lineage that comes into contact with the box, and then it comes to an overarching theme where one of them beats Pinhead or a Cenobite further down the line. So there's a really easy way to do an anthology narrative there. Now, I think there's lots of other ways you can do it, but I feel like you will run the risk of falling into a weekly procedural otherwise. So it has to capture the kind of sadomasochism part of it, which will be very difficult, but I think TV is a better place for that. It's more advertiser friendly on TV. There's less risk of it being on TV than being in the theatres. Now, the other stuff they say is the producers are underway with a search for a writer and showrunner before setting it at a network or streamer. So they don't have a streamer yet. They have announced that they're doing it. They are working diligently to find a writer, a showrunner, someone to helm the project. And then they're going to approach streaming services or networks. Who would be interested in this? So many people. So many people would be interested in this. Especially, as they say, at a time when horror is performing strongly. Now, it then goes off to bumble away about the first movie, but then it also makes the very distinct point here of saying the feature rights are separately controlled by Spyglass, which, like I say, is still happening. This movie is still happening. This is something completely separate, and it won't be connected. It's completely new. The rights are with different people. There'll be different narratives, but this goes very, very well together, hand in hand. You can easily have a movie, which I think maybe even this TV series is looking to use that movie's popularity, inevitable popularity, as a springboard to launch the TV series as a launch pad for it. Now, obviously, it matters who is producing this, and that's Roy Lee and Dan Farah. So let's take a look at Roy Lee, right? Roy Lee. What has he done? What has he been involved in? Well, quite a lot, actually. Quite a lot. He's produced some alright horrors. Not necessarily the best, but known for. It, The Departed's fine. The Lego Movie, a key producer there. And The Ring. So obviously from that, you got 2 movies which are relatively okay, solid, I guess. But then he goes even further, you know. There's a whole bunch of other stuff here. A Boy and His Tiger, Battle Royale, Friday the 13th, Keloid, The Mother, The Tommyknockers, Minecraft movie. These are all, you know, moving forwards into the future. But what he's done in the past, I mean, he's even on Godzilla vs Kong. So Godzilla vs Kong, Grudge, Doctor Sleep, It Chapter 2. I mean, this man has been involved in a lot of stuff. He's not small time, and yet he's handling a TV series. This is really good news. I think this chap here, and again, Blair Witch. There's a lot of good stuff here. The Exorcist TV series, I don't necessarily think that's good, but you know, there are a lot of good stuff in here. Not necessarily all of it is good, but from someone's filmography, it's not a bad cross section. He's done a lot, and a lot of it has been good. If we were to take a look at, just for argument's sake, the producer of X-Men and the director Simon Kinberg, what he's produced versus what this chap has produced, Simon Kinberg would have produced a lot worse stuff than this guy. So, you know, if we're looking at just producers, this guy has it down pat. Now, the other producer is Dan Farah. What has he been involved in? What is he known for? Okay, so he's executive producer on The Crow. This is a movie which has long been in development hell. That's fine. The Shannara Chronicles, that was relatively well loved. Ready Player One was well loved. He's been involved in Slam Planet, a documentary. Rock the Bells, documentary. Armored. Yeah, I mean, this chap's not really known for an awful lot of stuff, but he's started to move into, you know, larger things here. So he went from fairly low profile things into, you know, higher things. But more importantly, they're well loved, right? A lot of people like the Shannara Chronicles. I myself never got into it, but they're well liked. Ready Player One smashed it. Pretty much everyone likes that. So yeah, I think this is good. I think looking at these two people, it's a good blend, you know, like Roy Lee, a man known for relatively decent horror, and an extensive producing filmography, and Dan Farah, up-and-comer producer. This bodes really, really well. So I hand this on over to you. What do you think about this? Do you think this is good news? Do you think this is bad news? They are undoubtedly using this as a launch pad, using the movie as a launch pad to bring this into the forefront of people's minds. I think this bodes really well. I think this is great news. For me, personally, it would have to be an anthology for me to be massively interested in it. Otherwise, I feel if it's a narrative week on, week out, I feel like you really, really will run the risk of it just going into a procedural. There'll be Detective of the Weeks. It'll be awful. So I think through the years, just do period pieces, bring demons into it, have whatever you just go bombastic and crazy, embrace the sadistic BDSM side of it. You know, really get down to the nitty gritty hardcore part of what made Hellraiser so good. And get me to do some voice work as well. I'm here, guys. I'm here for it. If you need any audition tapes, just look at my Hellraiser playlist. I'll be game. I will fly to LA. I'll do all the voice work. Oh dear. Yeah, it's a good time to be alive. Good time to be a Hellraiser fan. So let me know all your thoughts down below in the comments. If you're new here, make sure to hit subscribe. You can stay up to date on this, which is, generally speaking, a daily dose of pop culture and movie news. But this is Hellraiser. We gotta discuss it, deep dive properly on this channel. So that's all we're talking about today. But yeah, stay up to date on everything, movie reviews, etc. And stay up to date on this, the Hellraiser updates, as I'm pretty much one of the only channels that really covers this stuff. So anyway, guys, thanks so much for watching. As always, I've been Mr. H. Take care.